Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. And if you're like me, finding a place to eat is never an easy thing to do. Whether you're in New York or DC or traveling, I always find myself wishing I had a trusted friend I could call to tell me where to have dinner or lunch or just where to eat. The infatuation is that friend. The infatuation helps you find the right restaurant for any situation. Need a place for a first date? Trying to find a spot for your birthday that you don't want to celebrate, except you kind of have to. I had that a couple of weeks ago, by the way. The infatuation has you covered in all these situations and many, many more. So if you need a place to eat, but don't want to read through thousands of unreliable crowdsourced reviews from imbeciles that you have no idea who they are, hit up the infatuation down hit up theinfatuation.com or download their free app for iOS or Android to search thousands of restaurant reviews and guides in 22 major cities around the world. Or let the infatuation do the work for you by sending a text to 64560. Again, that's text to 64560. A real person is going to respond to you and help you find a restaurant that's perfect for whatever situation you're in. Now, let's get going. This is the No BS Coaching Advice Podcast, episode 112. I'm your host, Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome. Welcome to this day after the Super Bowl. And my shows tend to help people talk about or think about life, the universe, everything I tell you. And the Super Bowl is or often contains wonderful metaphors for things that we can do differently and how we can step up and really take action. And yesterday's game, Super Bowl 53, I think was no exception. And as I looked at the game, I know a lot of the announcers were frustrated that it wasn't a high-scoring game. Every once in a while, you'd hear some snide remark from Jim Nantz or Tony Romo talking about that fact. Yet, like I said, there's some wonderful lessons in there. So the first one I want to call attention to was the fact that pretty early on, the two coaches figured out that this was not going to be a typical game as played in modern professional football, which is high scoring, a lot of action types of games, that this was going to be a defensive battle where one side or the other was going to oppose its will on the team and ride that to winning. So, as I looked at different moments in the game, I thought in terms of positional football. I thought in terms of how teams, how individuals can basically take what's being given to them and take action that moves the needle forward. It doesn't have to be big chunk plays. It doesn't have to be major action. Lord knows these two teams were grinding it out all the way through this game until ultimately New England triumphs. The Rams make a mistake with about 4 minutes left. An interception is thrown that really brings the game to an obvious conclusion. But the real lesson for you is take what's being given to you, figure out, of course, what you want and how you want to get there, and then take the small actions that impose your will on the situation. You can't help but notice that these are two very talented teams. But some of the players on New England, some of the players on the Rams are not as good in other systems and on other teams as they were on their respective teams. I'll give you an example. Ndamukong Suh, great player in Detroit, absolutely terrific, signed a big contract in Miami, not quite as good, got frustrated there, started to feel like a loser, goes to work at the Rams, and he's paired up with Aaron Donald, who's a player who is like him in many respects, without quite the nasty edge. The two of them together are beasts, Great system for him where he doesn't have to take on the big load, but thus can have a huge impact on the game. New England. Why is it that so many players leave New England and are never quite as good elsewhere as they are on that team? It's not simply about the talent or the talent being over the hill. It's smart coaching and great systems that come into play. Do you have a winning system, or are you just dealing with things haphazardly? I'm not saying other pro teams do that, but most people I know go into situations in a haphazard way. Start plotting your system. Start creating a system that serves you instead of just being a wandering generality throughout much of life. You know, there's a wonderful scene at the end of the movie Forrest Gump, which, if you're too young to have ever seen it, was a huge hit for Tom Hanks. And the final scene shows him waiting at the bus with his child. I don't remember if it was a son or a daughter, and sending them off to school after the love of his life has died and he's taken over the child that they had together, or the child that she had with someone else. And there's a wonderful moment at the very, very end where a feather appears and just floats off into the air. So many people are like that feather, drifting from one place to another without aim or focus. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you tell me. How's it been working for you? Is there something you could be doing differently? Are there systems you can create that would be more effective than just drifting from place to place? A lot of the post-game that I read talked about how the Rams quarterback, Jared Goff, looked like a deer in the headlights from the time of the national anthem until the end of the game. I don't think that was really true. I think he was put into a situation where it was going to be hard for him to win. After all, the best player on the team, Todd Gurley, my guess is he has some sort of injury and he's been playing the last few weeks of the season that way. He's the best guy on their offense. He really wasn't completely available. They'd show him from time to time, but he wasn't at the top of his game. Highest paid running back in football, couldn't really perform, and it affected the entire offense. You know, when you're not on top of your game, when you don't have all your assets together, how well do you perform? And that lesson from the Rams is a wonderful lesson to take into the rest of your life. Are you ready? Are you at max game? Are you able to perform at a high level? How can you put yourself in there and perform at a high level? Again, systems are going to be part of it. Talent is going to be part of it. But at the end of the day, how can you perform even when there are things going on that don't allow you to be at peak? Think about that one for a second. Julian Edelman, Super Bowl MVP. Long road to being that kind of player. He was originally drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2009 as a 7th-round pick, the 232nd player overall, and was traded with a 2010 second-round pick, 44th overall, and was traded to the New England Patriots for a 2009 third-round pick. Now, I mention this because the 7th-round pick of the draft, they never make the team. That's the reality to it. They never make it. But Edelman had something that was unique, and that was a drive and a desire, and he worked it hard. It's not enough to have drive and desire. You have to put in effort, day in and day out, trying to improve, trying to get better. And if I remember correctly, he was originally a defensive player that they switched to the offensive side of the ball. I could be wrong about that one, but I think he was originally a defensive back and originally played in that position before they moved him to the offense. Folks, there are no excuses. There's an opportunity there for you if you'll work hard and outperform everyone else. Can you do it? Are you willing to put in the effort, or are you just going to make excuses for why life doesn't really work well for you? So that's today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to the show. Just subscribe so you get downloads whenever I release a new episode. Each show is going to be bite-sized morsels of advice just like today's. I hope you enjoyed it, and I do hope you subscribe. And if you do choose to subscribe, I hope you decide to support the show. There's a link that will take you to anchor.fm where you can make a pledge in support of the show. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you're interested in my coaching you, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/The Big Game Hunter. Mention that you listen to the show. I just happen to like knowing I'm helping some folks. And once we're connected, message me about your interest in coaching. We'll set up a free call. We'll get acquainted, see if it makes sense. I'll be back soon with more. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great day. Take care. Time for